Are you apple or banana?
If I had to pick only one for the rest of my life, I would pick an apple.
What do you guys think I am?
An apple, duh, with peanut butter.
I want your hot take on having red meat and heart disease markers.
Red meat and heart disease. Let's talk about it. Well, statistically, Americans...
This person wants to know, what are our thoughts on seed oils? I have seen several studies and headlines recently, and I don't know what to think.
To me, there's no food opinion that's worth being a bully.
Well, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, are all of those people seed oil free that are actually on there? Probably not.
Yeah, open up your pantries.
Let me see your pantry now.
So this person said, can you talk about sugar and cancer? So does sugar fuel cancer?
Very similar. What's up and welcome to the Art of Being Well. Basic labs miss so much when it comes to people's health, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, underlying environmental toxins like herbicides, pesticides, forever chemicals, microplastics, to hormonal imbalances, biotoxins like mold, bacteria, viruses. I mean, how many people are struggling with these being a piece of the puzzle of why they have things like autoimmune problems and hormonal imbalances, or things like brain fog, fatigue, anxiety, and depression? The training in the standard model of care in the conventional world is typically to diagnose the disease and match it with a corresponding medication. So the labs they are running are wholly adequate if that's what you're doing. If that's sort of the sort of medicinal matching game, it's appropriate because they need to give you the basic labs to prescribe the appropriate medication. But it's wholly incomplete to understand why you have the problem in the first place, which rarely is it because of a medication deficiency. So we're just asking different questions. And when you ask different questions, you need to figure out the answer. And our job in functional medicine is to figure out, why do you have the problem in the first place? Looking at these facets that are what science shows is to be the contributing factors and the causes to chronic health problems, mental health issues, hormonal problems, things like fertility as well. So if you want to learn more about a functional medicine perspective on you feeling your best and how we're looking at optimal, not average, the functional range, and how we're running more comprehensive labs, you can learn all about it at length for free at drwillcole.com. That's DRWILLCOLE. And also, if you want to, head on over to the Become a Patient page and see how we help people around the world, running the first telehealth clinic, functional medicine telehealth clinic in the world for over 15 years ago at this point. So, my friends, we're here for the latest Ask Me Anything episode. About twice a month, once to twice a month, we aggregate your burning health questions and we answer as many of them as possible in these Ask Me Anything episodes. So today is no exception. If you want to get your health question answered, email it, submit it to hello@drwillcole.com. Again, that's hello@drwillcole.com. And then the patient experience team will add it to a Google Doc and give it to us, and we'll then get through as many of them as we can in the Ask Me Anything episodes. And to help me out every Ask Me Anything episode, we have two brilliant members of my clinical team, two functional diagnostic nutrition practitioners. I've worked with Andrea for 15 years ago. 15?
Yeah, this month, 15
years. And Emily, 8, 9, 8 years. So we've worked a long time. I see these people more than I see
my family.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
10 hours a day talking to people around the world. So you're going to get a behind the scenes view of the first functional medicine telehealth clinic in the world. Every episode, every AMA episode. This is fun. And this is a fan favorite for sure. People love these episodes.
I love it. I even love our Google Doc that you mentioned.
We get an eclectic group of questions for sure.
I actually enjoy trying to figure out which ones we're going to answer.
Yes,
it's hard, right?
It's a good time. Yeah, we sit around in our little room on our couches and we're like, all right, which one's next? Which one's up?
Yeah. So we try to curate it as much as we can to have a variety of questions to keep you guessing on the different
frequently
topics.
asked questions, ones that overlap
ones
more
that we
than
hear
once.
a lot.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. What's the first health question?
All right. So our first question for you, Dr. Cole, is, Dr. Cole, I need your help. I see a lot of conflicting research and information, and I want your hot take on having red meat and heart disease markers.
Okay. So red meat and heart disease, let's talk about it. Well, statistically, Americans consume the lowest amount of red meat in the past 100 years. So we historically have actually, if you look at the decades from the early 20th century over that 100 years into the 21st century, we are consuming radically lower amount of red meat, but yet inversely proportional, like the lower the red meat consumption, we have the highest that ever of chronic health problems as a whole, heart disease being a part of that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't necessarily correlate that the causation entirely. We know these are multifaceted puzzle pieces, and it's a confluence of factors. But let's look at it. There's actually a recent meta-analysis that looked at 20 randomized control trials, 20 RCTs, which are the gold standard in science as far as the scientific literature is concerned. And they found that eating beef daily, we're talking about unprocessed beef and minimally processed beef, had no negative effect. And the authors of the study determined that beef could be a part of a heart-healthy diet. And that's the most recent research. But we know clinically, this is big. We've looked at labs and correlated it with lifestyle changes for the past 15, 16 years, that we overwhelmingly see what this study showed is that in the context of a diverse, nutrient-dense, whole food-based diet, beef is a part of that, we see an improvement of cardiometabolic markers. And that is decrease of triglycerides below 100, HDL or good cholesterol above 59, right? Glucose or your blood sugar, fasting glucose is under 90. Your A1C coming down to below 5.7. Inflammatory markers, high sensitivity C-reactive protein below 1, homocysteine below 7, because it's just something we've seen over the years that this can be a part of a whole food based diet, and not just can be, but I would say should be from a nutrient density standpoint. Right. So yeah, go on, Andrea.
No, I was just going to say we didn't talk about iron and iron deficiency. And I mean, this is something that from a micronutrient standpoint, not just a protein, not just the macronutrient, but micronutrient, all of the things that you just mentioned, red beef is the clinical research shows that a good quality grass-fed, grass-finished beef has a very high amount of necessary nutrients, especially in those that are pregnant and breastfeeding and the elderly.
So let's look at some. I mean, the people know about the folate, B12 are needed. Right. You mentioned about fertility, but beyond that, the recycling of homocysteine down into methionine, so bringing that pro-inflammatory marker that we look at, and we want it under 7. Red meat. I like that you call it red beef, because I'm thinking, what's the other?
You're right.
What's
Sorry.
the other
red beef.
Other type of beef that I'm not aware of.
There's white beef. It's really bad. Been sitting out too long.
So red meat or grass-fed beef, whatever.
Sorry.
I only do brown beef.
So, So I would say that this meta-analysis of 20 RCTs was really fascinating, because it really confirmed what we see on a daily basis. Yeah. And sometimes you see, science, and you have to look at the context of it. And then there's a difference between science and something in a lab versus what real life, people, and what does that translate to on what do you do with this data standpoint. I could definitely see this on an hourly basis. And now with that said, I have telehealth patients that are vegan, that are vegetarian, for religious or ethical reasons. So I'm not saying everybody has to eat red meat, but there's a science and art, hence the name of this podcast, of figuring out what's going to be the most nutrient-dense foods that love you back, that also you love. And if somebody has a lot of discord in their body because of they have inner resistance around eating meat, there's religious or ethical reasons for that, that stress and anxiety around the food is going to play a part into their biochemistry and how that's impacting their physiology. So be clear on that. But if
there is some other factors. I mean, me, I'm going to be an advocate for it, whether that is religious preferences. Who am I going to tell someone from that perspective? But let's be honest and real that a lot of those patients end up having to supplement though with a lot of these missing micronutrients.
Yeah, well, that's where I think our care could really come into play. Is that if you can't get all the nutrients through food because of restrictions, religious or ethical reasons, then we can overcompensate with supplementation where there is a lack of nutrient density. Folate, B12 being two facets, iron, active bioavailable iron, vitamin A, true vitamin A would be another one, retinol, which again, you're not going to get those depending on how plant-based you are. The bioavailability of these aren't wonderful, and supplementation can really fill in the gaps where you're maybe not focusing on your meals as medicine as much. But anyways, this study really, because it is such a gold standard in the research, it was very helpful, I think, for the conversation of people to get it, because there is a lot of stigma and indoctrination and demonization around red meat when it comes to heart disease specifically. But what the study showed was that the biomarkers that it showed to be beneficial for and no negative effects was HDL-C, apolipoprotein A, ApoB, VLDL-C, triglycerides, I think I said it all. And then maybe total cholesterol as well.
So everything basically.
But what I was going to say was that what they didn't test for, which I think would be beneficial, was small dense LDL particle P. So what I would say this clinically, what I see is that typically you'll see a decrease of the small dense LDL particles, which are the protein carriers of cholesterol. They're like little cholesterol transporters. That those pro-inflammatory, sort of rusted, oxidized BB bullets that can tear through arterial walls that are not good. They're the protein carriers. So what I'm trying to say is that in our experience, you will predominantly see in most people an improvement of this pattern B, this high small dense LDL particles into the beneficial large buoyant LDL particles. And you get this from running an NMR test, a nuclear magnetic resonance, which they didn't test this in the meta-analysis, or they didn't look at this in the 20 RCTs. But I would like that, because that would be one more check mark in my mind of like, okay, look, like this really accurate cardiometabolic blood test, very conventional cardiometabolic test. Also, you can see improvement, which is very highly correlated with heart attack and stroke, high small dense LDL-P.
Yeah, no, I think this is such a good question to answer too, because I know all of us can attest that this is really the first question that we get when we go over cholesterol markers, even if it's, especially if any of the numbers are above that standard testing range, right? And explaining and educating on, it's not about removal of red meat, but, really looking at the quality of it, making sure that we're having a diet that has variety, that is really looking to get the essential minerals and these co-nutrients that are going to help with absorption. And I love, Andrea, that you talked about iron. I mean, we understand that it is an important mineral, that it carries oxygen to the cell, but it also helps synthesize a lot of hormones too, and really plays a big part in transportation too. And I think that especially because red meat is such an easy way to get the absorbable form of that, I think that there's just a lot of education that happens around this topic, and we do spend a lot of time when we're reviewing labs going over these details and really helping people sometimes unlearn and relearn, and that's a good thing. Yeah.
And this study looked at least one time a day people eating meat once a day, red meat once a day, had these beneficial neutral effects on heart health markers specifically. And what I would define as unprocessed beef, and what the researchers kind of defined as unprocessed, would be something like a steak.
Yes. And I was going to ask you to clarify that, because
like
when you say unprocessed meat, are they talking like tuna tartare? Like what or steak tartare?
So something that,
like, what is that?
So that's another good example. Something that's like the whole slab of meat, minimally processed.
Sell it, Dr. Cole.
Whole slab of meat.
Some people like that.
Grossing me out.
I just got a whole lot of people excited right there. And then a minimally processed would be like ground beef, which it's technically processed.
But it's just ground.
Yeah, it's ground. So minimally processed or unprocessed red meat all showed that could be a beneficial part of
organ meets would definitely be an unprocessed because that's a whole, they're typically in form, and that's still considered part of the red meat family.
Yeah. Yes, not the white meat or the brown meat.
Not the white or
Yes,
the
not
brown
to be
meat.
confused.
You
Let's
know,
not confuse
just
it.
so everybody knows the harassment around that I will endure for the next
2 weeks at least.
Look, we all
least 2
misspeak.
weeks.
It's
Yeah.
like, hey, it's
Yes.
part of being human.
But
I would say too is that a lot of other studies conflated causation and correlation because they looked at modern American behaviors and where people have the burger and the fries plus the Coke, plus the soft drink, the cola, plus this maybe smoking, plus being sedentary, and then they sussed out just the red meat, and then they demonized that, sort of cherry picking data.
100%.
So that's why this research wanted to really
zone in on what the cause and effect is specifically, and that's why these randomized control trials are so important, especially a meta-analysis over 20 different RCTs. I will say this for full disclosure. One of the studies showed that it had a nominal effect, but still significant effect on LDL-C. But it was a sort of outlier test. And they found that the people in this one study, one of the 20 studies, had lower on average levels of LDL-C. So when they took that one study out, then it had no effect on it. But even if it did modulate LDL-C, which 19 of the 20 said it didn't, but I still would be curious on the LDL-P and the
I
quality,
was just gonna say,
the quality, not the quantity.
Yeah.
So did the quality shift from pattern B to pattern A?
Right.
Yeah, and
That's what I don't
and I love
know, and
the
the
way
study
that
did
you
not elaborate
explain this, just for anybody to visually picture what Dr. Cole is talking about. You've used this analogy before, even on this podcast, is we're talking about non-oxidized, fluffy, cloud-like particles as
I
compared
think of
to
them like a cotton ball.
cotton ball.
I
say
love that.
cloud.
Works,
And
yeah.
then the other one is the oxidized pattern B, which is like rusty BB bullets.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
that's those are what you're seeing clog your arteries. So to kind of simplify this a little bit, what we're saying is that if your LDL-C is slightly, say, above 150 is what the metrics is, what we look at. If it is under 150, or if it's over 150, but you're in pattern A, that fluffy cotton ball size, it actually lowers your risk of heart attack or stroke as well. So it's context is so important. So you're right. I would love to see with that one study, even though it was slightly higher, what was the LDL-P? What was that oxidized?
Yeah, did the oxidized go down and the
Right.
and the large point get larger? But I would say this too is that it's so to be said another way, it's inflammation that damages the particles that carry cholesterol that can damage your arterial wall, which the body's mechanism to repair is the plaque. So that is the sort of mechanism of action that a lot of us understand is happening. It's an inflammatory process, and the body's trying to create homeostasis, but because of the pro-inflammatory state, it's dysregulated and unable to. So yeah, that's the
really,
understanding.
what we're at the put this little bow on it. We're for it. We're an advocate. If there's no religious impediment or ethical impediment, that this study confirms what we've been seeing for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
Are we going back to hot or not? I'm going to say hot. Is there a pun somewhere in there?
It just came out of me, but
is there a pun? Hot?
I like my beef brown, so
we like our hot red meat. Anyways.
Wow.
All
right, I'm going to move on.
Turn. I don't know. That could be a saying.
We'll go to our next question, or we could probably sit here and talk about red meat all day.
Yeah.
So our next question, Dr. Cole, is actually revolving around seed oils, which I think is really good too. And this person wants to know, what are our thoughts on seed oils? I have seen several studies and headlines recently, and I don't know what to think. I've noticed Whole30 changed their standards on what oils qualify, and wanted your opinion on that too. So this is a two-parter. Do we have hardline opinions on seed oil and our thoughts around that? And then also Whole30, for anybody that's watching this back later, it changed their standards for where seed oils used to be excluded and now they are in the allowed. And do we have thoughts on that?
So full disclosure, for context, Melissa Urban is a good friend of mine. She's been on the podcast, I believe, twice at this point. And this should be kept separate. Like someone that you love and respect on a personal level, have known for many years, you don't necessarily have to agree with everything that everybody
Yeah.
says. And that's
Yeah.
okay to have diversity, different opinions. Let me be clear on that. There's zero shade. I love her very much.
Yeah.
And love her family. Nor do I also don't love at all the hyperbolic fear mongering that can happen on the other side, where it's like,
Yeah.
if you have that box of organic expellers sunflower oil snack, you're gonna die tomorrow, and you're poisoning yourself. So I typically do have a middle ground view on most things, the context of it, how much are you consuming, what's your baseline
Right.
health, all of that stuff. So let's look at the studies. I will agree that there is conflicting information out there, especially when you look at the years of the big studies that are always touted by the conventional medical world and a lot of vegan advocates, is that these industrial seed oils are heart healthy. So things like canola oil, vegetable oil, soybean oil, they are always used on marketing jargon on the front of boxes, is that this is heart healthy. And a lot of it has to do because of these plant oils, which a lot of them are classified under these industrial seed oil categories. So I have a problem with the processing of these oils. A lot of them can be rancid at room temperature. They're very sensitive to light and heat. There can be a lot of the processing can involve a lot of toxicants as well. But what's some of the new recent science look like? Well, one study came out not too long ago. It was an in vitro study looking at colon cancer and the lipid modulation, the types of fats that were found in the tissue of colon cancers. And what they found were there were higher levels of arachidonic acid, which is a polyunsaturated fatty acid, a PUFA. That's what these industrial seed oils are. And now look, a lot of people in social media took that and ran with it, because if you had a lipid imbalance, and the researchers were looking at this in vitro study that found this was a pro-inflammatory state, and there were high levels of this polyunsaturated fatty acid, arachidonic acid. So therefore, it was for certain that eating seed oils equaled, the study was saying, was going to cause colon cancer. Now, you can't make that jump on an in vitro study when there was no dietary intervention. It was just in the colon cancer cells, they found higher levels of arachidonic acid. It could be a hypothesis that increasing high levels of polyunsaturated fatty acids could feed something like a colon cancer.
Yeah.
But you can't make that definitively. You can't pull that definitively from that one study, even though for those of us that don't think it's healthy, we'd love to do that, but you cannot cherry pick data and take things out of context. But I will say this, the authors of the study said that because further research is needed because of what they found, and with the next step, in my opinion, would be a dietary intervention. Would someone on a lower omega-6 diet, which let me define this. Omegas 3, 6, and 9 are different types of polyunsaturated fatty acids. So industrial seed oils like canola, vegetable oil, soybean oil are typically higher in omega-6 and lower omega 3. So all of these in their whole food form, nobody, because everybody in health likes to debate something. But you're going to be hard pressed to find a whole food based diet, because there's balanced ratios of omegas 3, 6, and 9. Right. When you look at things like, nuts and seeds or wild caught fish, there's less of an argument about that, right? Mm-hmm. Especially with fish, right? Because there's going to be all these different types of omega 3s, these polyunsaturated fatty acids, but it's going to be in its whole food form, not in these sort of these extracted processed oils that people are over consuming. So the ratios of omegas 3, 6, and 9 tend to be more of a healthy state for cell membranes, for human health. So I wasn't actually surprised when I saw that study. I liked the study because I was like, okay, yes, this confirms what we kind of all understood the mechanism of action to be, is that if you have higher omega-6, that higher arachidonic acid, higher omega-6 would be found in this pro-inflammatory state known as cancer. So You just can't make the leap to say that this equals that from a dietary intervention with this study. Second study that came out recently looking at omega-6 and omega-3 was a study that looked at the specific, was done in 100 men with prostate cancer. And the researchers wanted to determine whether high omega-3, low omega-6, PUFA, fatty acid, like seed oils, like I mentioned, did that decrease the specific cancer marker, Ki-67, in these 100 men with prostate cancer. The result of this study, after 1 year, the cancer marker improved by 15% for those eating high omega-3, low omega-6. Wow. The cancer marker increased by 24% in the control group. So the conclusion in this second study was that a high omega-3, low omega-6 diet with fish oil for 1 year resulted in a significant reduction in this Ki-67 index, which is a biomarker for prostate cancer progression, aggressiveness, metastasis. So the likelihood that someone would survive, you want that this marker to be lower. So
wouldn't you hate to be a part of that control group?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah. But you look at that further kind of shows this understanding that the balance of omega-3, 6, and 9 matter. And that's why supplementation with omega-3 has seen for years beneficial outcomes for different inflammatory problems. Because the modern Western diet is so pro excessive omega-6 that with supplementation of a quality omega-3, it's at least in some way starting to rectify that omega-3, 6, and 9 balance. That's always been the understanding. And these two studies are pointing to the fact that, yes, this is the mechanism of action, because we know inflammation is the commonality between all these chronic health problems, not just cancer, but heart disease and autoimmune problems.
It links back to our very first question.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I mean, I agree with you that we don't take a hard stance in our clinic in general from a patient perspective. It's not an all or nothing and you're a failure if you have these things. Right. What I think we should take away from these studies and what I would encourage people to understand is, what are you doing in your life and does it equate to matching your short and long-term goals? And if this doesn't match and align with your short and long-term goals, we know that these can create inflammation, period. What level, how much, how prone you are, we know that. So are we going to advocate for you to cook with canola oil in your home? Probably not. Mm-hmm. Are we going to say that if you go out to eat, you should only eat at seed oil-free places and you're going to die of colon or prostate cancer if you eat out, once a month with your, friends or family? No, we're not saying that either. And I think that's really to kind of circle in the whole 30-part, Dr. Coles, because I know how close you and Melissa are. This isn't to rag on them. And in fact, I'm sure that there was a lot of, we've gotten asked this question from patients too. And I think they just want to understand what our thoughts are. And we can't speak for Whole30, but what I can say is that it most likely was to give people the emotional freedom to go outside and eat out and eat with your friends and not create that hyperbolic, that over analysis of that orthorexic type tendency to look at everything that you're doing and question everything that you're doing. Yeah. It just gives you some freedom, but also be your own advocate, be your own researcher, find a practitioner to work with. You want to know how much flexibility you have more immediate needs and goals. Yeah. Maybe that's not for you and you need to work with someone like us. But for the general public, it's going to take them outside of what they're normally doing and aligning them to eat with more real whole foods.
And, go on, Em.
No, I was just going to say, I think it really depends on where someone is at, what the journey has been like too, because, we're seeing patients who have been dealing with, autoimmune conditions 15, 20 years, right? Yeah. And so they may already be doing a lot too. And I'm sure a lot of them have either tried removing these things, but if they haven't, we are going to advocate for them to stay free of these seed oils, because we know that we're dealing with inflammation that's coming from a lot of different components and we don't want to aggravate it. So I do think, of course, we're going to advocate for that. But I also think for the person who is really trying to just change their lifestyle, change their family habits, I think that, we all got to start somewhere, right? And I think that if you are really, starting with taking out dyes first, or maybe it's you're going gluten free or whatever your goal based on what your goals, what you said, Andrea. If that's not the first thing that goes, I still think you're doing really good things.
Yeah, and look, I would imagine that there are better for you versions of this.
Yes,
right. So it's like those organic, like something that has less toxins.
Yeah.
Like an organic sunflower oil.
Yeah.
Is, I would assume, less detrimental, even though it's high omega-6. Yes, it's still processing, but you could assume that it's probably less toxic.
Yeah.
That you are better for you seed oils to this. I go back to some grain-free snacks out
Simple
there.
Mills.
Well, I wasn't going to call out
Sorry.
any names. So I was going to say
you don't do it,
a lot of packaged snack foods out there that we would say, yeah, they're better for you than the the conventional ones, but they still technically have seed oils.
I mean, I give them to my kids. I mean, if I have to pick between, a organic sunflower oil cracker in my kid's lunch as comparatively to a bag of Doritos.
Yeah.
Can I call them out? So
Are they owned by Kellogg's? No.
That are like covered in like red dye. Like,
have you seen that meme where the one friend is like the nice friend trying to explain the situation?
Oh,
and the
that's
other one just
100%
chimes in with,
us.
They're ugly, and the other one's like, "Well, this is the situation.
Yeah.
Nice one.
I'm
a
normally
little
the mean-
aggressive.
You're the
mediator.
No, you're normally the mean one. What are you talking about? I've seen that and actually almost sent that to you. But that's what I'm talking about is like, there has to be some moderation. And I also, from even my kids' perspective, do I want them to have these more pro-inflammatory foods? No, but when I'm trying to keep my 13 and 16-year-old out of a vending machine, I'm going to choose the best available thing on the market.
Yes, right. And that's why you look at the end of the day, did you consume more omega-3s or omega-6? So I think it's more to do with that in the context of a whole food diet. Is if you're having some snack with omega-6 that's industrial seed oils, in the context of a nutrient-dense whole food diet, it's not the end of the world for most people.
Yeah.
But look, if somebody's maybe going through chronic disease,
I'm
going to be more tight with my recommendations. Like,
100%.
Like minimal as much as possible. If you're talking about the everyday lifestyle, don't stress. Like stressing about healthy food isn't good for your health.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So I again, we understand the science.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't talked to Melissa about this from Whole30 personally about it. Via social media a little bit because I commented on the post where people were really coming at them.
Yeah.
And I don't like a social media gang up.
No, I don't.
And
It's
I've
terrible.
been there and I wanted to stick up for my friend and just like
Let's cancel that.
Like cancel the cancelers. So it's like I want to that's what I didn't like. Like to me, like there's no food opinion that's worth being a bully.
Well, I'm sorry. At the end of the day, are all of those people seed oil free that are actually on there? Probably not. I mean, there might be some that are fanatical, but you're
open up your pantries.
Yeah,
I want your pantry.
I want to see a picture of your kid's school lunch. Send that to me.
You know what? But a lot of these people are militant. They are militant,
right? And maybe they need to be.
Yeah, but then there's some people that they jump on because they're jumping on the bandwagon and they like it and they like dysfunction and discord. So
I keep it to a minimum in my life, but I don't. I don't
cook with
entirely.
it. I don't have. It's not in my house. Yeah. Like at the end of the day, except for in my pantry for my kids, gluten free. Like
we love Simple Mills.
If I'm eating out, I'm not being completely militant about that either. But I don't eat out that often.
Yeah, and there are apps for that now.
Yeah.
So there's an app for everything now. So I think this is good.
Yeah. Awesome. Next question.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Cole. So this person said, "Can you talk about sugar and cancer? Does this mean even thinking of things like fruits? Could fruits be a problem and should they be limited too? So does sugar fuel cancer?"
Very similar, first aspect to this question, very similar to the concept of omegas 3, 6, and 9 in their whole food form versus not. So when you sort of isolate, extract, process it, the body does not recognize it because we are meant to eat whole foods predominantly, right? Or exclusively, should be. So the closer you can get to that, the more your microbiome, your biochemistry is going to recognize that. I hear a lot of people say they'll conflate the two. Well, sugar, I heard it feeds cancer. And then it goes to like, and they even say that with yeast and fungal overgrowth. We hear that a lot of times too. Yeah. I'm on a candida diet, so I can't have any fruits. And
Yeah.
there's a time and place for ketogenic. We talked about that. Lower carb approaches, absolutely, for metabolic, inflammatory, microbiome, cancer reasons, right? There's a lot of research around the ketogenic diet and benefits for these different inflammatory problems. But to say that's for everybody forever is definitely not the case, because when you're talking about the whole food form, it behaves very differently. When you're talking about fiber, the antioxidants, the polyphenols. So I don't want to conflate the two. When you look at all the major research, fruits are associated with lower chronic disease levels,
Yes.
not higher.
Yeah.
They're actually on a lot of our cancer type protocols and things like we use a lot of real whole fruits and vegetables whenever we're talking about that.
But there are studies that show that things like high fructose corn syrup, which is a processed, bastardized version of fructose.
Wow, you really that was
Man,
a
is that too
strong
hard?
word. That was a strong word.
Yeah.
No,
I'm here for it,
you
though.
liked it?
I
liked it.
Am I a bad cop?
Now I think you are.
Wait a minute.
We're shifting roles.
Okay. So there's a
Just
study
so basically
that
we're
was
calling
published.
sugar bastards. Okay.
Oh my gosh, what is going on here? This is a study published in Nature, okay, that found that diets that were higher in processed fructose, and they used in a lot of the aspects of the study high fructose corn syrup, because that's the most predominant source of fructose in the modern American diet. They found that cancer doesn't have the enzyme to metabolize fructose, but they co-opt the liver, and specifically this one pathway, the fructose metabolism pathway of ketohexokinase, KHK pathway. They found that the cancer cells are so freaking smart at subverting the body's biochemistry, commandeering the liver in the specific fructose metabolic pathway, in producing beneficial phospholipids for its own growth. So they were basically shunting, in the presence of high fructose corn syrup, shunting that fuel for itself to basically grow and become stronger. So when you do hear people say sugar fuels cancer, well, first of all, there's two different main types. There's cancers that actually get their fuel from fat and ketones specifically. And this one actually technically did, when you look at it, used fructose to make a phospholipid. So this KHK pathway. So high fructose corn syrup, certainly according to the study and other studies, show that can fuel certain types of cancer. This was looking at breast cancers, skin cancers, and cervical cancers specifically. Study published in Nature. But
Yeah. I hate to keep calling out all your pantries, but I really would challenge everybody to look at the food that you're buying and really look at the ingredients. I think you'd be surprised to see how many snacks and packaged foods are going to have that high fructose corn syrup, the type of processed sugars.
Yeah.
Even looking at ingredients, I know that there's some basic tips, which I think a lot of our listeners probably follow, but, if you can't pronounce it, it's obviously there's some sort of modification there. If it ends in os, like it is going to have, most likely a sugar component to it. So I just think it is important for us to really be looking at what we're consuming, right? And sure, we can get into the nitty gritty of, are these whole foods going to increase it? And everyone's different with how much they should have and what kind they should be having. But I think if you are focusing on the whole food aspect, that you're really going to see the benefits.
Well,
here.
I mean, if you look at food as a whole, let's just take a banana, for example. Like, you're not...
Making me
I'm
hungry.
oversimplifying this, but if you think about it, we don't want our patients being like, "Oh my gosh, if I eat a banana, I'm not." Let's just not even go the cancer route. Diabetes, blood sugar. This is bad for me. It's sugar, and I'm like, it's a freaking banana. Like like if you have the flexibility and we're telling you it's safe, it's most likely safe for you. Like, let's not create a phobia around something that doesn't need to. But if you have in your pantry, a gluten-free granola bar, let's say, that has, some sort of refined seed oil on top of high fructose corn syrup.
Like 30 grams of sugar.
Yeah, it's like
Right.
you're looking at, there's no protein. It's not really a real whole food. Don't demonize the banana. let's not say sugar is going to create cancer. Let's not say that
America
this is.
doesn't have a diabetes and a cancer problem because of fruit.
No, and I say that all the time.
That's
So funny. We've said this before. I've seen a comedian even say it. It's like, your friends, you suddenly want to cut back, and you're not going to Taco Bell drinking the tequila shot at 12 a.m. You're going to bed on time, and then you're like, yeah, but I'm trying to clean up my diet. I'm eating some grapes and bananas, and they're like, oh, you better watch out. Your sugar can make you fat. And they're like, show me a fat person. This is a comedian. I'd never say this to someone, but like, show me someone overweight that only exclusively eats fruit. Like it's not. Right. It's so crazy how our culture has taken. And now again, there are very real people with SIBO, the small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, these candida problems where yes, maybe we want to scale back on certain things or maybe eliminate them for a time.
Yes.
The real whole food though, the truth should be eventually you should have food freedom enough to bring in real whole foods, including fruit. And we want that for our patients. We want to see that for our patients. And if you're unsure of how to navigate that for yourself, find someone, but please do not create orthorexic tendencies that you read an article one time and it's like, sugar is going to give me cancer. Refined seed oils are going to give me cancer. I can't eat red meat because it's going to give me heart disease. And then you end up eating like alfalfa and alkaline water. And then you're like wondering why you are nutrient deprived and sick, but you're eating a quote healthy diet. There's a balance here that we have to help people find.
Yeah.
What are you feeding your head and your heart on a daily basis?
Yeah. I have a question. Are you an apple person or a banana person? Because I'm sorry, but I just don't see both.
Where did this come from?
I thought about the whole time you were talking, Andrea. I'm sorry.
Or a green banana. I like my resistant starch.
Okay, wait. I love underripe bananas.
Yes, so does my daughter's child.
Wait a minute. You just don't see both. Are you apple or banana?
I would, if I had to pick only one for the rest of my life, I would pick an apple. Pink lady.
Okay.
Oh.
See, yeah, I love that you knew.
What do you guys think I am?
An apple, duh, with peanut butter every day, all day.
Okay, so how do you like your bananas if you had to choose?
Oh, this is good.
I'd rather underripe than overripe.
But
how are you having
pick
your
on
banana?
the spectrum of bananas?
Yeah.
Slightly green on the ends, yellow throughout.
Yeah, that's pretty much me.
Okay.
But are we the minority? I feel like we're the minority.
Actually, can we have people can we do a poll and have someone email into the hello?
We'll make this into a reel. On this reel, on my Instagram at Dr. Will Cole, let me know how you like your bananas.
It's a need to know. I'm
what
sorry.
could go wrong with me asking that question? I don't know.
So would you pick, you would definitely pick a banana over an apple.
No, he just said apple.
Really?
You're not listening?
No, I wasn't. Sorry.
Thinking of the next question you're going to ask me.
Oh,
Although
I
probably was most surprised by your answer.
I am. I would have thought bananas.
God, what? Do you even know me?
Yes, you have a stockpile of bananas on your desk at all times.
I like bananas.
Bananas, pears, kiwis.
And I don't see
that's you.
And I don't see apples very often.
That
Grapes.
is true.
I see grapes.
That is
I
true.
see
I
kiwis.
will give them this. Yes, I will get what you're saying. But if I had to pick,
if I went to the store to buy for you, I would never choose an apple.
No, I would choose green grapes that are firm. I would choose kiwis,
pears that are nice and ripe.
Nice and ripe.
The right pears.
Even my beautiful wife, she knows when the grapes get a little bit too, you know what I'm saying.
There's too much give.
She said, "Are these not good enough for
too much give?"
Yeah, too much give. She'll say, because they'll sit in the fridge, and she knows I'm probably not going to finish the rest of them. She goes, "Are these not good enough for Dr. Wilcol?" And throw them away.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen you eat a banana in all of my 8 to 9 years of working with you.
It's not something I would actively go out and buy. I would eat it, absolutely. I have no problem with a banana. I hate fake banana flavored stuff, though.
Gross. Disgusting.
No, it's disgusting. I can't even. It's not even banana. It doesn't even taste like a banana. Yeah. Anyways, we're going to digress here. So I got 2 more questions. I want to get through this. That was the most random. We did not plan that at all. So Dr. Cole, I have a question for you, and we're really shifting gears. We went from all the different foods to another person who's asking about hair treatments. She said, I wondered if you could talk about hair straightening treatments such as Brazilian blow dry. I think our patient experience team manager told me that that's a specific company, Brazilian blow dry, and keratin treatments. There have now been quite a few research studies and reports linking these to increased risk of uterine and breast cancer and the risk of estrogen dominant lead tumors tumor growth, both for clients and hairdressers. And I thought this was really important because we've seen this, maybe not necessarily with clients, but definitely hairdressers over the years. So I'd love to hear your hot take on Brazilian blow dries, because I know you've had a lot of them over the years with your hair, hair treatments.
You just caught me on the day after, right? Like day after my Brazilian blowout. Is that the same thing?
Yes, that's the thing.
And keratin treatment.
So I'm full disclosure, I have heard of these terms and I know they're toxic because I read the research and we talk to telehealth patients about it, but I've never seen it actually being done. I've never had it done before. They are linked to negative health consequences. They release formaldehyde. They either contain formaldehyde or release formaldehyde, which can be irritating, inflammatory to the body, to the lungs, to the eyes, to the nervous system as a whole. It's carcinogenic. Yeah. So the flip side of the argument is with all of these things. Well, the dose makes the poison just a little bit. You're not like inhaling it in high quantities. So it's hyperbolic to say these things are bad. And that's what the manufacturers and a lot of the sort of naysayers, I guess, of a lot of us within health and wellness, they think that we overcorrect too much, which we can sometimes. But I would say for this, we have to choose our poison.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And some people, it's going to be the conventional makeup. For some people, it's going to be the conventional beauty products. Mm-hmm. From some people, it's going to be the convention, like going to the nail salon or the Botox or the.
Why did you guys look at me? Did you see my forehead though? Didn't move.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you. A surprise. So for some people, it's going to be the hair procedures, getting their hair dyed, or these. So to me, of course, it's not healthy, but if you're getting it once a year, twice a year, and we're exposed to all the types of things in the world, maybe in the context of your life, it's not that big of a deal. But I wouldn't recommend it on a regular basis.
I think there's a point to that, though, Dr. Cole. Even if you're saying once a year, every time you heat your hair, you are releasing some of these chemicals. Yeah. So it's not like you're talking about pick your poison. If you get your nails done once a year for a wedding and then you get them taken off, that's entirely different than getting a treatment for someone that maybe has, I don't know, shoulder length hair or longer, and they're not cutting it. I mean, you are literally, as long as you have that hair that was treated, every time you blow dry it, it can release those chemicals.
True. So it's a higher toxic burden for sure.
It is.
There's
it's
no
100%.
way around it. Yeah. So look for, if you see formaldehyde, formalin, methylene glycol on an ingredient list, the FDA actually says the solution is not formaldehyde free. So even the FDA is weighing in on this.
Yeah.
Which, if they're weighing in on this,
it's pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
Yeah.
Generally speaking. So, I don't think that I would not recommend them. I think if you could find a formaldehyde-free solution, it could be safer. Right. But as the trade-off typically goes, if they get rid of one, there could be other toxic ingredients because they have to maintain the effectiveness of the product. So typically you'll see that with plastics. It'll say BPA free, but it'll have other bisphenols.
BPS.
So it's like you have to be mindful of, yes, it can say formaldehyde free, but I still would educate yourself on the ingredient list because they may have swapped formaldehyde for a more toxic ingredient.
Yeah, my question was when we were discussing this was well, do hairdressers take precautions when they're giving these treatments? Because
it's not even just the one receiving the treatment. What about the person that's doing 20 of these in a week?
Yeah.
Right.
And I was going to say that's one of the questions we ask every new telehealth patient is, have you worked in a beauty salon?
Right.
And if so, how long? I mean, it's one of the questions for the toxic burden assessment. Yeah. Same with, have you lived near a golf course?
An orchard, a farm, a power plant. I mean, there's a lot of things that we ask.
The top of the list are beauty salons, golf courses,
dry cleaners,
industrial farms, dry cleaners. Yeah.
Well, I think something too, especially when going to a hairstylist, maybe you've been going for a long time, that I know sometimes it can be hard to say, oh, I need to find a new stylist because they don't use these right products. And again, to each their own. I understand, especially if you like your hairstylist. But something that, my hairstylist is open to all the time, I can pick and choose what treatments I want. Obviously the blowout is a treatment that you would choose. It's a service that you're paying for. But even treatments that hairstylists just put into like their typical wash and dry and whatnot, you have a say of what you want them to use and what you don't want them to use. My hairstylist always tells me, she's like, if you don't want me to do the specific treatment this day, you can tell me. And I'm usually pretty minimal when I go and get my hair done of what treatments I want, or I will actually bring my own shampoo too, and my own conditioner, my own treatment that I've vetted. And, even if it's not something that she uses, she knows why. She knows, I care about some of these particular things. And again, it is all about pick what's important to you and what you value there. But, just so everyone knows, like, you have the ability and
advocate
especially,
for yourself.
advocate for yourself and for your health.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially for women who, want to cover their graying hair and I can't use henna. I respond really poorly to it. It makes me break out in hives. I can't use some of these more organic, natural things. So 4 times a year, I use a more toxic hair dye. I do. That's in transparency and truth. This is what I choose. This is how I choose to weigh that. But it doesn't impact me. It's not sitting on my scalp 24 hours a day. It's not there every time I blow dry my hair for the next 5 years. It's a choice that I make for myself. I choose lower toxin nail polishes. I choose lower toxin makeups. I use really good skincare. Like I'm not saying that I don't do everything perfectly. And I think as a woman, it's really hard in a society where we are in some ways you don't wear makeup to work some day and someone's like, are you sick? You're like, no, I just don't have makeup on today. Thanks very much for pointing that out. Like women are expected to have this vibrancy and put togetherness all the time. And so we're not saying don't get your Brazilian blowout. We're not saying that at all. What we are saying though is ask yourself, where do you want to make the exceptions? Where do you not want to make the exceptions? And to Emily's point and my point, we may be going and getting our hair dyed, but we're bringing our non-toxic shampoo and we're asking not to put the gel in before you blow dry it. Like we're making choices.
Right. It's a balance.
And we just, it's a balance of what you want to do. And it's hard. Dr. Cole, I know you understand this, to be a woman and have to get your hair done and your nails done.
When I come to the telehealth clinic without my Brazilian blowout, no one even cares.
No, it's so hard for you. Everybody's like, oh, look at that. The amount of times that people comment on your skin, your hair, and your vibrancy, it's annoying. I mean, like, people talk about it all the time.
It is true.
And his tan. Why do you tan so easily?
Yeah. Ugh. So it's,
it's my small percentage of Greek.
So,
no.
What do you mean? Mine's 25%. Where's my tan?
A different part of Greece.
But anyways, to this point is we don't want to make every woman that hears like, oh my gosh, I'm poisoning myself. But you should just ask yourself, is there a better way, a more thoughtful way to care for myself and still feel good about myself?
Yep.
Well said. And I will say, when you are informed, most people, I would say, wouldn't choose those elective things. They tend to not, especially for, I don't know how important a Brazilian blowout or keratin treatments are for some people. Maybe they're super important. But I find that a lot of those superfluous things tend to go away because it's like, oh, it's one less thing. Right. It's not that important in my life. It doesn't hugely make a massive deal.
Yep.
Anyway, so that's all the time we have for today, right?
Yes,
absolutely. So I think the biggest takeaway from our conversation today, whether it's food, beauty products, whether you're an apple or banana person, we want you to know that there is 2 sides to every coin. There is a conversation to be had. And I think that you are more moderate than Emily and I and approach to most things.
You hear that, Instagram, when you say I'm causing eating disorders? I'm looking at you.
Yeah, come talk to us.
I mean, could you imagine if me and you were
eaten alive?
We would be crucified. It would be so bad. But
the body positivity people have come for me. Little no, they know I am like.
You are, honestly, you are the most chill. But the most science-based. And I that's what I appreciate is that we are using...
Also, do you hear that, Instagram? Do you? The most science-based.
Sometimes Emily and I hardline, and we're not necessarily even picking because it's... Anyways.
No, it's personal opinion with these girls.
But no, I appreciate this. I think this was a good conversation today.
If you want to learn more about our clinical work, the telehealth center, there's lots of free resources, like hundreds and hundreds of articles with all the links to PubMed and all the fun sciencey stuff, if that's your thing, at drwillcole.com. We'll see you next time.